today, we will start with the first episode of Surah An-Nissa. O mankind, fear your Lord who created you from a single soul and created from it its mate and spread from both of them many men and women. And fear Allah, through whom you ask one another, and the wombs. Indeed, Allah is ever over you, an observer. The truth is, there are four opinions regarding whether this surah is Madinan or Meccan. The first opinion says that this surah is Madinan, revealed entirely in Medina except for one verse, which is the one that says, Indeed, Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due. That one was revealed in Mecca. So, the first opinion is that it is Madinan. The second opinion says that it is entirely Meccan because it begins with O mankind, and any surah that starts with O mankind means it is Meccan directly. The third opinion says that it was revealed during the Prophet's migration from Mecca to Medina. All right? Yes, during that journey, during the migration. Okay, so what he means is that it's not strictly Meccan and not strictly Medinan. Maybe it's both. That's what he wants to say. For everyone. The fourth opinion says that the beginning of the verse is Meccan, and what was revealed after the Prophet's migration to Medina is Medinan. These are the four opinions, according to our source on this topic. All of these four opinions are mentioned in Fath al-Qadir by al-Shawkani. All right, what does this mean? What does this verse mean? It means a single soul. What is meant by a single soul? It is Adam. Okay, and created from it its mate, meaning he created from that soul. This means from Adam, his wife, his spouse, meeting his wife, who is Eve. Here, Eve means that when God created Adam, Adam fell asleep, and then God created Eve from his left rib, from the back. That's how it happened, all right. When he woke from sleep, he looked at her, liked her, she liked him, he felt comfort with her, she felt comfort with him, they became close. And life went on, all right. Who is saying this? That Adam, that Eve was created from Adam's left rib while he was asleep? The one who says this is Ibn Kathir, all right. Now, the real question here, so we can wrap up this verse. The question is, what is the wisdom behind repeating the phrase once as fear your Lord and once as fear Allah? That's one. And two, give the orphans their wealth, and do not exchange the bad for the good, and do not consume their wealth by mixing it with your own. It was a great sin. The reason for the revelation of this verse is that it was revealed about a man who was the guardian of his orphan nephew, meaning his brother died and had some business, land, farms, or something like that, and he had a child. So the uncle became the guardian of the child, and also the guardian of his property. All right, that's good. When the child grew up and became a young man, he demanded his wealth. He asked his uncle, "These are my father's things, and I want them." His uncle refused, so they took the matter to the Prophet. When brought before the Prophet, the verse was revealed. Hearing the verse, the man handed the property to his nephew. That was the reason. Source? The source. Here, the source is Al-Kashaf by Al-Zamikshari. Also, the question is, what is the wisdom behind repeating give and do not consume, since they mean the same? Give orphans their wealth is like do not consume the wealth of orphans. They're the same. So what's the wisdom behind the repetition? Thirdly, and if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphans, then marry those that please you of women 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only 1, or those your right hands possess. That is more likely you will not commit injustice. The reason for the revelation of the verse. This is that the orphan girl would be under the care of her guardian. She and her wealth, meaning what her father left for her, and so on. When he died, he left her the farms, the business, and all these things under the authority of her guardian. Whether he was a neighbor, a friend, or anything else, the important thing is that this girl grows up, and one day she becomes attractive in his eyes. So he marries her. But he marries her without giving her anything. He doesn't give her a dowry or bridal gift or anything like that. So the verse was revealed to forbid them from doing that. Even if you are her guardian, you still have to give her her due. That is the issue, the point of the verse. Who said this? Lady Aisha said this verse was revealed for this specific reason, the same thing we just talked about. Very good. So what does it mean? We've mentioned the reason for revelation, but what does it mean? Another point, do not intend to wrong the orphans. The truth is, if you are afraid, that's the first opinion. That you treat them fairly, that you pay the dowries of the orphan girls when you marry them. If you can't do that, then don't marry them. Instead, go and marry 2, 3, or 4 women whose families are present. The girls whose fathers are present, you pay their dowries and marry them 2, 3, or 4. You see, that's the simple meaning of the words. Very straightforward. Okay, so if you're afraid again that you won't be fair between 2, 3, or 4. And with 4, what will you do? You marry just 1. All right, fine. If you're afraid you won't be fair even with 1, then you should go for what? The captives, those who are right-hand possessions or slave women, like slaves. All right, those are the ones they get from raids and such. When they go out, fight, conquer a city, and occupy it, all the girls there become captives. Take as many of those as you want. Up to 100 or 200, no problem. Of course, it depends on the distribution, because they're divided among the fighters according to the number of fighters, and the number of what? And the number of captives, right? So if there were 500 captives and, say, 100 fighters, each one would get about 5 or so, something like that. Why is that? Because intercourse with those owned by the right hand, that means there's no injustice. Even if you were unfair to them, it's not considered wrong. It's not considered injustice or anything. No dowry, no contract. They have no rights, nothing at all. So, intercourse with those owned by the right hand is the closest to not being unjust or unfair to them. All right, very good. So how many concerns do we have? If you're afraid you won't be fair to the orphan girl, then marry 2, 3, or 4. If you're afraid you won't be fair with 2, 3, or 4, then just marry 1. If you're afraid you won't be fair even with 1, right? Then you can have intercourse with those your right hand possesses. All right. What's the source of what I just said? All right, that was the opinion. If you're afraid, and if you're afraid, And if you're afraid, now the second opinion, which is about the issue of if you fear, you will not deal justly with the orphans. The second opinion says, marry without limit from those your right hand possesses, or from captives or slave women. He literally says, and I quoted him word for word so I could read it to you. He says, by my life, swearing by his own life, never in my life. Those women, captives or those your right hand possesses, have less responsibility, meaning you have fewer obligations toward them, almost none at all. They are less costly than wives with dowries, meaning they have no dowry. So it doesn't matter if you have many or few of them, 5 or 100, it doesn't matter. Whether you treat them equally or not, there's no blame. Whether you choose to have intercourse with them or not, again, there's no problem. So, a Muslim has the right to enjoy relations with those his right hand possesses, just like with his wife, without the need for a marriage contract, dowry, or witnesses, according to this source. The second opinion on the matter of if you fear you will not be just. So, whose opinion is this? The second opinion, who does it belong to? For that, you go to Mafadi al-Gaib by al-Razi. All right, good. Now, the third opinion here regarding the phrase, if you fear you will not be just, is that the jurist said this is a condition that has no clear meaning. That is, if you fear, because it is a condition. Here, if you fear not being just with the orphans, then marry 2, 3, or 4 women. They said this is not clear. Why? Because what about someone who doesn't fear? It says if you fear, but what about someone who doesn't fear? I'm not afraid I won't be just with the orphans. And we'll marry 4 orphans then. Okay, so what is this? They said it's not clear at all. So those who say that this condition has no meaning, or is not clear, or is ambiguous, who are they? If you go to Fath al-Qadir by al-Shawkani, you'll find he says that the scholars of jurisprudence agreed that this condition has no meaning at all. Period. The fourth opinion is about the issue of 2, 3, and 4. It says that 2 doesn't mean just 2, 3 doesn't mean just 3, and 4 doesn't mean just 4. No, it means 2 by 2 by 2, or 3 by 3 by 3, or 4 by 4 by 4. You see? Why? For example, let me give you an example. You say, the students enter the classroom. 2 means 2 by 2, you see? Or, the soldiers enter the camp. 4 means 4 by 4 by 4. And so on, you get it? All right, so here, actually, this is it. Where does this idea come from? It's from the Tafsir al-Jalalain. This is a very important point. That is, these 4 jurists might have the opinion we just mentioned, their perspective at the time is about the verse, and give the women their dowries graciously. So if they, of their own accord, remit any part of it to you, then enjoy it with pleasure and goodwill. Give your means pay. So give is directed at someone. Some people said it is directed at the guardians, at the woman's guardian, whether it's her father or another guardian, or there are other people who. Others said, no, it's not directed at the guardian, it's directed at the husbands, the suitors, those proposing marriage. Pay the women their dowry. All right, very good. Here, as a gift, what does gift mean? It means an obligation that you are required to pay the woman her dowry and bridal gift, whether it's the guardian, the suitor, the fiancé, or the husband. All right? So the rest of the verse means that if the woman decides to give up part of her dowry, like she says, honestly, you gave me a farm, a house, and this and that, I'll let you keep the farm. It means you can benefit from it. It's not a problem, as long as she gives it up willingly and with a good heart. Got it? So what does that mean? Now, what's the source of this statement? It's from Al-Kashaf by Al-Zamikshari. 5. And do not give the weak-minded your property, which Allah has made a means of sustenance for you, but provide for them from it, and clothe them, and speak to them words of kindness. Here, in short, it's a prohibition for men against giving their wealth to children, or, according to some scholars, they said it applies to women too, because both groups are considered weak-minded. This is what the scholars said. So what they're telling you is that you should be the one to invest the money and spend on them, and you shouldn't make them feel indebted when you do. When you provide for them, speak to them in the best way. So what's the source of this statement? The source is Anwar al-Tanzil wa Israr al-Tawa by al-Badawi. All right, the real question here. Honestly, the question itself matters to me more than the meaning of the verse. Here it says, and provide for them. Pay attention to the wording. Provide for them simply means that God provides, and humans also provide. Take note of that, because you might respond and say, no, provision comes from God in the first place, but this is about giving from a human being. I don't disagree with you at all, ultimately, about what provision means. Look, if provision was only from God alone, he wouldn't have said provide for them. He would have said grant them, help them, give to them. But the wording is clear. He says provide for them and clothe them. Very good, right? So, if you consider that the provider is God, then what if I respond and say that when God says, and we saw this in Surah Al-Baqarah, and kill them, what does that mean? Here he says provide for them, and there he says kill them wherever you find them. Al-Baqarah 191. So is God the killer? You're telling me that God is the only provider, right? And the human has no role, right? Minimizing the human role. Fine, I'll go along. But when he says, and kill them, who is the killer? The human or God? You have to think when you read the Quran, because the one giving the command is the one who says provide for them and kill them. It's the command. So if you consider God to be the provider, then you have to consider him the killer. That's the issue. I see that both God provides and humans provide. This is stated explicitly in the Quran. Okay, let's take he doesn't just say provide for them, he says, and test the orphans. Stay with me, and test the orphans until they reach marriageable age. If you find them to be mature, then hand over their wealth to them, and do not consume it wastefully. And do not approach their wealth before they come of age. Whoever is well off should refrain from taking anything, and whoever is poor may take only what is reasonable. When you hand over their wealth to them, have witnesses present, and God is sufficient as a reckoner. The truth here, simply put, is that before you give the orphan his money, Before you hand over his inheritance, you must test his sound judgment and good conduct, because he might have grown tall but still be foolish. His mind may not yet be mature or balanced. This is the issue being addressed here. The young man, if he is a male, must reach maturity. That is, marriage for boys, and for girls, menstruation or pregnancy. That's what's meant. All right. And then it says that you shouldn't be wasteful in spending their money. While they are still young, try to preserve their. What? This is directed to the guardian, to the guardians over the children. Preserve their wealth for their future benefit. The wealthy guardian shouldn't take anything at all, and the poor guardian should spend wisely from the children's wealth, that is, in return for the fact that he is looking after their interests and so on. That's good then. So here, pay attention. The question here, let me ask you again, what is the difference between a divine test and a test? When a human says test them, it means try them out. Why do you test them? Because you don't know how they'll react, you don't know how they've grown, you don't know how mature their minds are. Have they reached the age of maturity? When God tests, what does that mean? A human tests because he is ignorant. Why does God test? For example, when he says, "We will surely test you with fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth, lives, and fruits, give good tidings to the patient." So what is that then? Do you get it? Huh? So what I want to tell you is, look, if God provides, then humans do as well. If God tests, then humans do as well. If God creates, then humans do as well. Because reproduction, giving birth, is at its core a process of creation. So keep that in mind. That's why, because look, humans are an image of God on earth. Isn't it he who says, "So when I have fashioned him and breathed into him of my spirit, fall down in prostration to him"? Right? That was it, yeah. Here, it's not just God's spirit, because he breathed into him. So when he says, "When I have fashioned him and breathed into him of my spirit," it means that the human being has been given a breath from God's spirit. This is also creation. You see, he says, "And when your Lord said to the angels, I am placing a successor on earth," a successor. So he is God's successor. He is breathed into from God's spirit, and he is God's successor on earth. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 30, you see? So the human is an image of God, and God manifested himself in the human, not incarnated, like the Christians say. No, God manifested in the human. Exactly. Men shall have a share of what the parents and close relatives leave behind, and women shall have a share of what the parents and close relatives leave behind, whether it is little or much, a prescribed share. The reason for the revelation of this verse is that there was a man named A.W.S. Ibn Thibet al-Ansari, this man. He passed away, leaving his wife alive and 3 daughters. The important thing is, his cousins took his wealth and didn't give them anything. Neither the 3 daughters nor the wife got anything. So the wife took her 3 daughters and went to the Prophet, crying. She said, "O Messenger of Allah, this and that happened. My husband's cousins took all the wealth and left us with nothing. Now we're struggling just to get by and barely have enough to survive." They were in a situation, not finding anything. The Prophet told her, "Go back to your house until I see what Allah will decide about your situation." Honestly, during that time, I don't really know what was happening, to be honest. I mean, was the prophet communicating directly with God and saying, I have a case like this and I need a solution for it? Or was the prophet communicating with Gabriel, who would communicate with God? Was it God who knew about this woman's complaint and her 3 daughters and sent Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad with a solution? Did it go up from earth to heaven, or did it come down from heaven to earth? I won't ask you about it, because no one knows the unseen. Only God knows. So this verse was revealed to say that both men and women have a share in inheritance, because the Arabs didn't used to let girls inherit. Women simply didn't get any inheritance at all. So this verse came down to tell them that. As soon as the verse was revealed, the prophet sent a message to the husband's cousins and told him, wait, don't spend any of us money, because a verse has been revealed. It said that women or females have a share, right? Very good. And then, after this verse was revealed, another came down. The first verse said women have a right to inheritance just like men, but didn't specify how much. So, the next verse was revealed to clarify that. The shares and prescribed portions for women in inheritance. Verse 11. We're at 7:11 in Surah An-Nissa. We're currently at verse 7. Verse 11. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, a share equal to that of 2 females, to specify the shares and prescribed portions. So verse 7 said women have a share, without specifying portions. Verse 11 specified them. Dotted. When verse 11 was revealed, the prophet sent another message to the cousins of the deceased, Aws ibn Thabit al-Ansari. He told them, give the wife her share, give the 3 daughters 2/3, give the wife 1/8, and take the remainder yourselves. Is that clear so far? All right, so what's the source of what I just said? For verse number 7, it's from Mafati al-Gaib by al-Razi, volume 8. And when the relatives, orphans, and the needy are present at the division, provide for them. Again, it doesn't say give them, or grant them, or help them. It says provide for them. The wording is clear. A person provides for another. Provide for them from it, and speak to them kindly. So what's the meaning? When dividing inheritance after someone dies, and you split it among yourselves, it might happen that the poor, orphans, needy, or relatives without a share show up. The point is, give them something. That's what the verse means. Give them something to meet their needs, something good. Of course, some said this verse is definitive, while another group said this verse was abrogated by verse 11, which is, God instructs you concerning your children. For the male, a share equal to that of 2 females. Anyway, that's it. So who said this? What's the source that said? This meaning is found in verse 8, which I just mentioned, in the Al-Wazit interpretation of the Quran by Sheikh Syed Tantawi. May God have mercy on Muhammad Syed Tantawi. And let those who would fear for their own weak offspring, if they were to leave them behind, be mindful of God and speak justly. The meaning here is that the guardian, imagine someone leaves behind children, and another person becomes the guardian of the children. The father, you say to him, O guardian, fear. God is talking about the wealth of these children, These weak offspring, the simple kids who play in the street. These kids don't know anything about the world. So what does it mean to fear God and be mindful of Him regarding their wealth? Because it's clear that people used to consume it. The wealth of orphans, I mean. So yes, fear for their wealth and don't deprive them of it. Take care of it and guard it for them until they grow up, and then give it back to them properly. Because you should treat them as if you were the one who passed away and wanted someone else to look after your children. Think about how you would want someone to treat your kids. You definitely want them to protect their money and care for them so they don't get lost in this world. All of this is exactly what the verse tells them, because it's clear this was a problem among them. When someone died, they would eat up his wealth. So the verse warns them. Source: Almazan fi Tasir al-Quran by al-Tabatabai. Verse 10. Indeed, those who consume the wealth of orphans unjustly are only consuming fire into their bellies, and they will be burned in a blaze. This warns the guardian, the one responsible for children, inheritance, and such matters. Sir, don't distribute their wealth to orphans and the needy. Don't open your hand too wide, because this isn't your money in the first place. It's not your right. But if you see that the relatives who don't have an inheritance, or the orphans and the needy, are in a really tough situation, then maybe you can give them something. Give them up to 1/3 of the inheritance. Just enough to meet their needs as well, that's fine. The source is Al-Wajiz by Al-Wahidi. Thank you all very much.